What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Childhood Encounter banner, which features young Lyon, young Laurashell, duo Eirika, and young Tana. I'll be giving you guys my comprehensive analysis on these units and the best builds you can run on them. Similar to duo Eirika's damage reduction, I want you all to help me reduce the damage from YouTube as well by leaving a like and subscribing if you do end up enjoying these banner reviews. So that said, hope you all do enjoy and let us begin. Young Lyon is a 4-star focus unit on this banner and he's a blue infantry mage. It makes him easier to plus and merge compared to the 5-star logged units, and on average you'll be requiring 500 to 600 orbs to plus and merge him. So he's definitely going to be a really popular unit that many people invest into, and honestly he's definitely a very good unit from this banner, especially as a merge project. So his preferred weapon, Tome of Grado, gives him +3 attack, and it's always going to be active in the enemy phase. However, if you want to use this in the player phase, you want to make sure that the foe is at full HP. So it inflicts -6 attack and resistance debuff on the foe during the combat, and also neutralizes any kind of debuffs to his attack and resistance during the combat. It's a bit unfortunate that this weapon does not neutralize the defense debuffs that he gets, because defense is also a really important defensive stat. And the secondary condition is that he basically gets a Raven Tome effect against ranged colorless units. Keep in mind that this is not going to be active against melee colorless units, only against ranged colorless units, similar to Fallen Lyon. So this weapon is really strong because it gives you the in-combat debuffs, it's super easy to activate, and it also gives you debuff neutralization, which is a big strength because debuffs are super common, and getting that Raven Tome effect against those annoying ranged units who are colorless is going to be a big boon, as many of them can be a really big threat. Stat wise, he's definitely min-maxed. He has got very low speed, which is fine. You pretty much have to run quick riposte on him so that he can double in the enemy phase, and he has got pretty high attack stat at 38 and balanced bulk, and this balanced bulk allows him to be a pretty good tank. You could say that he's effectively a blue Kyria in a sense because of the debuffs that they get from their weapons, but Kyria's debuffs can help her allies as well. Lyon's doesn't really do that, but the debuff neutralization and the Raven Tome effect is definitely really strong, which he gets. Compared to the other blue tomes, we recently got Sonia as a bulky blue mage, but she didn't really have a preferred weapon, and Pact Blooms Plus is basically the best weapon for her. So young Lyon is easily much better than Sonia because he has got a preferred weapon, and that preferred weapon gives him debuff neutralization, and that's one of the reasons why Brunya as a free-to-play unit is so good and is built so much, because debuff neutralization is very strong. And not to mention, this defensive weapon can also give him the Raven Tome effect, which is of course really good. Sonia is easier to plus and merge because she doesn't really require any kind of summoning, but as a bulky blue mage, young Lyon has got this. When it comes to his other competition, we do have duo Alphonse as a bulky blue mage, and despite them not having that much resistance compared to young Lyon, because Imbued Coma gives you the follow-up negation, which means that they cannot really get doubled and they can nuke really hard because of their weapon giving them the -1 special cooldown. Not to mention they've got a duo skill, and that can be utilized in Aether Raid's defense to enable duo's hindrance. So they're going to be really strong, but young Lyon is comparatively easier to plus and merge because he's a 4-star focus unit. Young Lyon also has attack res solo 3 at 4-star, which is definitely really amazing for fodder, and defense res cap is also a skill that you could utilize, but attack res solo is going to be the main skill, which is going to be really good. Young Lyon having that Tome of Grado pretty much means that he's one of those units that even if you get one-off copy of him or just get +1 merge, he's still going to be giving you the utility in many of the game modes because of his Raven Tome effect. So on a budget, he can just be built up with quick riposte in slot B and something like Mystic Boost, which can keep him healthy. You can also run double solo skills like attack defense solo Sacred Seal to go with attack res solo, and he's definitely going to be hitting pretty hard. The solo skills do work in the player phase as well, so that allows you to have pretty decent nuking potential, but of course you cannot really double. Like I said before, even on a budget, if you just pull 1 or 2 copies of him, he can still work out because of the Raven Tome effect, and you can run Triangle Adept for a budget build in Aether Raid's offense or in Arena Assault. This is not to be used like a main unit, but to be used with other tanks in something like Aether Raid's offense, where it's just tanking some kind of red unit or colorless unit. Same goes for Arena Assault, as we do have a lot of colorless threats. So as a budget unit, he's really amazing because of his preferred weapon. Now let's talk about if you want to invest heavily into him. These builds can also be run on Lyon if you have lower merges, but of course, bulk scales much better with merges compared to offenses, so having merges on young Lyon helps him a lot with his role. Even without any kind of fancy skills, you can still work out at plus and merge with attack res solo and attack defense solo, and you can run the rouse skill from Spring Saleh. And if you want to invest a bit more into him, then I would say that Mirror Stance is definitely one of the best, if not the best, slotted skill for young Lyon. The reason being is that he's a mage tank, he can work really well in that role, take on the ranged units, and Mirror Stance gives you the extra resistance, and Mirror Stance also has the guard effect, which is really good, and that is amazing for any kind of slow unit because you're not gonna get nuked by the enemy specials. So I would really recommend Mirror Stance 3, it is available in the Divine Codes 2 section. In slot B, lull attack resistance is just perfect because those are two of his stats which he really cares about, and you can also pretty much stack up the in-combat debuff with Tome of Fredo to give you -9 attack and -9 resistance debuff on the foe during the combat, which is really strong, and you can also run attack smoke to get the visible debuffs. Fortress Defense Res could also be run, and he doesn't really care if he absorbs some kind of chill resistance because he does have the penalty neutralization, but Dark Shrine or chill defense debuff is going to be sucking as he cannot really neutralize his debuffs to his defense stat. Fortress defense is decent, but I would always recommend Mirror Stance 3 over the Fortress defense skill, and try to run Mirror Stance if you can, it's really good. Young Lyon can be used in Aether Raid's offense, and he can run Null Counter Disrupt in his slot B to get rid of a lot of the Fire Sweep weapon users and the annoying Dazzling Staff units, and he does have really good bulk to deal with them, so he can definitely be used as a counter pick against a lot of those teams which rely heavily on the range units and these kinds of mages and colorless units, so there he can be a very strong option to pick even if he's at low merges. But on a budget, attack smoke can work, and Lyon can be run in both of the seasons. I would also say that if you have someone like Micaiah, then she kind of competes with this role if you've already invested into her with her weapon refine and stuff like that. She can pretty much run the same build as young Lyon, but actually have effective damage against these cavalry units which are really common, and also get the damage reduction. So she's definitely someone you have to keep in mind because she gets the auto follow up, whereas Lyon needs to run the Crooked Post Sacred Seal. So she ends up having better mixed phase, but young Lyon ends up having better bulk overall. So those are two of the units which you could consider if you're looking for a blue tank as a counter pick. You can also use them in arena with B-Dual Infantry 4. Having any kind of range unit in your arena core is going to be super good. Here you can have B-Dual Infantry from Marianne if you sparked her, and all of the other skills are pretty budget to get. You can get them from Divine Code section or from the units in a 3-star 4-star pool. However, if you want to invest a bit more into him, then you should definitely go with lull attack resistance, as everyone and their mom runs the rally skills in arena. Infantry Hexblade is a really good support option for a lot of the infantry allies, so that could be an option that you could run, but you could also run something like Joint Drive Attack to get even more damage output. You don't want to run Ruptured Sky because we are debuffing the enemy's attack by quite a lot, and Blue Flame does work out pretty well with his overall stat spread. Finally, you can also use him with Close Foil or Close Counter. Yes, he does have the Raven Tome effect only against the ranged units, but the other effect from his weapon works against even the melee units. So that's why Close Foil and Close Counter is not a bad option because he's really bulky on the both spectrums. So you can definitely rock these kinds of builds at max investment. He definitely needs as much bulk as he possibly could get when you're running Close Counter or Close Foil. Young Lyon is probably not the best unit to be used in Aether Raid's defense, but because he's similar to Kyria, you could try something similar where you could just stack up defense on him, because units who attack your Aether Raid's defense team are more likely to be physical, so that's why having attack defense push 4 and lull attack resistance from a Bramimon could be really good. And you can also run something like Time Pulse and have another unit give you the Infantry Pulse support so that you can have a pre-charged Glimmer. And attack defense form is a really good sacred seal with this because you can have a lot of defense, and that makes it hard for you to get sniped. So it makes it hard for you to get sniped by Ninja Lin or Legendary Leaf, and he can definitely make for a pretty good frontliner. The only thing is that he can only double in the player phase, and that's why having a pre-charge special is the way to go. Now, as I said before, Duo Alphonse can also do something similar with Time Pulse, but he doesn't really need Infantry Pulse from any other unit, so he does this whole thing a bit better, also because of the follow-up negation. But still, young Lyon can pretty much do the same thing as Kyria, and at even higher investment you can run the ARD defense res. Duo Eirika is a sword infantry unit, and she can actually score 190 BST because of the duo skill that she has got, making her one of the highest scoring options in the game for arena mode. She comes with her preferred weapon, which gives her -1 special cooldown, This weapon is extremely easy to activate because it's always going to be active in the player phase, and in the enemy phase she just needs to be within 2 spaces of an ally, and that is super easy to do. If that condition is met, then she can get +5 to all of her stats. And if she's got any kind of bonus or penalty on herself, then she can deal 20% of foes' defense as a true damage, and that's really good because it scales up as you face even higher defense enemies, and that goes really well for just breaking through a lot of the tanky units. And it also gives you the HP in return depending on the foe's defense. Again, it's going to be 20% of foe's defense. So this can be pretty good for healing, but against a lot of the nukes which do not have very good defense and they're just pure glass cannons, you're not going to be able to recover too much HP out of them. It is of course going to be pretty good for recovering HP from some really bulky units, but glass cannons are definitely something that you are not going to be able to get too much healing out of. Her duo skill gives dodge effect to allies within 3 columns and 3 rows, and this is basically going to be the speed based damage reduction, so she can have null follow up and the damage reduction skill at the same time, and you can pretty much use this skill on every other turn, which makes it a solid option. This could also be used as a support option for some allies who cannot have access to the damage reduction skills, like the cavalry units, the flying units, and the armor units, but still it requires the allies to have the speed stat to utilize this. On the other hand, if you just run someone like Flame, then she's just going to be giving you flat 30% damage reduction. However, this duo skill can be extremely good in something like Arena where she really shines as it is because of her scoring. Her stat spread is also really solid, having that high base 43 speed and pretty good attack stat at 36, and her bulk is also quite workable, and with the damage reduction skills and the extra stats that she gets from her weapon, she can actually be quite decently bulky and also be really fast, and because of having null follow up, she's pretty much stopping any kind of cheating auto follow up skills. So Young Eirika tries to do a lot of the things which other sword infantry units do. So she's got -1 special cooldown from her weapon, extra stats, has the true damage, has the self-healing, and also can get the damage reduction from her duo skill. This might seem really overwhelming for a unit, but honestly she is pretty good, but I wouldn't really say that she's the best sword infantry unit quite yet, because she does have some issues, and one of them is that she relies on her duo skill. And while this duo skill can be used again and again, in something like Aether Raid's offense, most people are going to be having the duo hindrance structure, so that just means that you're not going to be able to use this kind of skill many times, and you pretty much have to resort to running Flame or something like that to get the damage reduction. And having null follow up and slot B is really good, but she does have competition from units like Marita and Fallen Ike, who are also extremely solid. And we also have Ira recently, who has a very solid weapon refine who can get both damage reduction and null follow up at the same time without really relying on her duo skill. So Duo Eirika is a very good unit, don't get me wrong, she's definitely one of the top tier sword units. It just goes to show you that sword infantry units are so brutally competitive when Duo Eirika has got such a stacked weapon, a very fantastic duo skill, and really good stat spread, even having the speed super boon. So overall, it's hard not to be a solid unit when you have such a good weapon and a pretty good stat spread. As for her build, she already comes with a pretty decent base kit. Distant foil is definitely not something you want to go for, but on a budget it does work out. And you can easily run something like Kestrel Stance, but I would highly recommend you to invest with Distant Counter because it's the better skill, as Duo Eirika can easily take on mage enemies because of her damage reduction skill, which is a duo skill, and also the extra stats that she gets. So definitely try to go for Distant Counter if you're serious about using this unit. And you can also run Moonbow, which you can retaliate back with, and that can be a pretty strong option because of the true damage that you get from the weapon as well as getting the healing. So it does become 1 turn cooldown special. At max investment or at higher investments, I would definitely recommend trying to go for Time Pulse. I would say that that's definitely her best slotsy skill, as it is for so many other sword infantry units who have -1 special cooldown like Ira, Larse, all of these other units. The reason being is that you can even retaliate back with her special even if you're facing a unit with guard effect, and you can trigger this twice in player phase if the opponent can counter attack. So you just have to run a 2 turn cooldown special like Moonbow, Glimmer, or Ruptured Sky, and you can be a very powerful unit with Time Pulse. So again, that's a skill that you can invest into if you are going to be using her at a high investment. She can also be used in Arena, and I feel like Arena is pretty much the best game mode for Duo Eirika, because she gets the true damage which scales of the defense of the opponent, and that is perfect because if you're going to be in the score range where you're going to be using Duo Eirika, then you're going to be facing some incredibly bulky units, and the combination of that and null follow-up is extremely good for busting through them. I would definitely recommend having Ruptured Sky again with Time Pulse because it's a very strong combo, and lull attack speed could be run in slot B, but I feel like null follow-up is much better, honestly, for just dealing with those annoying units who have follow-up negation or have the auto follow-up. So she can definitely deal with those kinds of units, and then you can just run a Secret Seal that can boost up your speed and also one of your defensive stat. And that duo skill is just perfect for something like Arena, where you can easily give the damage reduction skill to your other allies, and this also allows your other allies to just free up their slot B skill. They don't have to run their own damage reduction skill when Duo Eirika can just give them with her duo skill, and you can use this duo skill multiple times as well. And this is a reusable duo skill, so it also helps your allies and kind of helps you in the team building in the long run. So you can run the lull skill or the null follow-up on your other allies as well. And like I said, Arena is pretty much going to be her best game mode, but it's just that she's incredibly hard to plus 10 merge. Duo Eirika can also be used in Aether 8's offense as a tank, and you can use her in double tanking strategies, or if you're just going to be using her as a solo tank, then I would definitely suggest having her used in the light season because you can get extra resistance from dagger and air, and that is really good for overall tanking. And null follow-up just means that you can easily deal with Bramimons, and she's got a pretty good matchup spread against the overall dark mythic units that you're going to be facing all the time, so she can function really well as a tank. In the Astro season she can also be used, but I would definitely recommend some more merches because we do not have any kind of Astro mythic that can give you the resistance buff. And you can also use her with Brave Lucina and have a 2-turn cooldown special like maybe something like Luna, which can definitely give you higher damage output, and that can allow you to one-shot many of the things, so that can always be a pretty good combo that you can utilize. And overall for her IVs, I think that plus speed IV is a no-brainer with her duo skill that can give her the damage reduction based on the speed, and she also has the speed super boon, so there's just no reason not to go for it even at max investment because it is going to be aging much better as we get faster and faster units. Young Laurashell is a cavalry healer with a preferred weapon and staff of Roston that gives you the Wrathful Staff effect built into it, and at start of turn she can inflict -6 resistance and the flash status on the closest foes within 5 spaces of her. And this is only going to be affecting the closest foes. It doesn't really mean that it is going to be affecting all of the foes. You can certainly try to inflict the status and the debuff to multiple foes, but you gotta make sure that they are away equal spaces from Laurashell. Most of the time it's just going to be targeting one of the foes because she doesn't really have to attack anyone or do anything to get this flash status on them, and that can be a pretty powerful tool overall. And the secondary effect of this weapon is giving her +6 attack and speed during the combat, which is extremely good, and she already has such good offenses by having 38 base speed and 37 attack. So she's pretty much like a colorless mage except for the fact that she doesn't have access to the damaging specials. She also has extremely low bulk, so do not really expect her to take any kind of hits, very low HP as well, so she's prone to getting one-shotted. So Laurashell is pretty much this kind of support healer who can give the flash status on the enemies and also the debuff, and she can also hit herself extremely hard with the attack speed push 4 and the extra offenses that she gets from her weapon. She comes with a new line of skill in Far Trace. So Far Trace basically gives you -3 debuff to enemies 2 stats. Here in Laurashell's case it is going to be speed and resistance, and it pretty much gives you Canto. So this kind of Canto is going to be activating after you destroy any kind of structure or you attack or use an assist skill. So this allows you to use the remaining movement which you have, and you can use that to retreat or move forward, and that allows a lot of options to be available. And this can only work once per turn. An interesting thing to note is that when you use your full movement with your Far Trace skill, you are not going to be wasting your Canto because you didn't have any kind of movement remaining. And after you get danced, you can basically use that movement again, like I did here. So that can allow you to plan out how you are going to be moving with your Far Trace units, and that's a very powerful tool. Just like the Near Trace skill, if you get teleported by any kind of movement skill like maybe ground orders or something like that, then you're not going to be getting Canto at all. So Far Trace is a really good skill for movement shenanigans, and it is going to be only available for the ranged cavalry and flying units. It's not going to be available to any infantry or armored unit. So Laurashell can use it productively, and she does have flash status from her weapon, so a lot of times Dazzling Staff is not really going to be needed as long as you're going to be attacking that one enemy who got affected by the status. Laurashell already comes with a really good base kit, so you can just go with Savage Blow and Slotsy or have Goat Cavalry. Attack Speed Solo is going to be a fantastic option because she's a cavalry unit and it's very easy to trigger, and that gives her extremely solid offenses, and she can hit extremely hard for a healer. And you can also use her in Aether Raid's defense because of the flash status. I wouldn't really recommend this to run on like Cavline or something like that because null counter disrupt units are still going to be able to just tank you fine. I think she's much better used on a mixed team, especially if you have any kind of far save unit who can prevent her from getting sniped or something like that. But still keep in mind that far save armor units are pretty common, and the opponent can pretty much send off one of their units in the range of Laurashell and keep their save unit and keep their far save unit behind, and the flash status is going to be affecting the frontline unit and not the far save armor. So while it is really good that you can affect the flash status on the opponent without even doing anything, far save armors are still going to be a very annoying thing for your defense team. But it's going to be really good if anyone tries to just mindlessly trying to tank your team, and you can just inflict them with the flash effect. We can also run Odd Recovery if you're trying to use her with higher investment, and this allows you to have another utility with her because she's a healer, she can hit hard, she can also just have the flash effect. I think that in Aether Raid's defense, the trace skill doesn't really do too much for you. It does give you the in-combat debuffs, but I feel like Dazzling Staff is going to be much better in case you do attack someone who doesn't have the flash effect on them. So that's why I would definitely recommend having Dazzling Staff, especially if you're going to be trying to use her a lot in Aether Raid's defense. And Odd Recovery, we all know, is a very good thing to just get rid of any kind of debuffs or penalties or negative status, especially the isolation. And finally, if you invest into her heavily, then you can definitely go with Attack Speed Catch from Farina. This skill is really good on her because she can inflict the resistance debuff from her weapon, so she doesn't really have to run any kind of extra skills to activate this effect. Of course, if you run a Dancer with Temari Plus, then this effect is going to be very easy to trigger, but still with just her own weapon, she can trigger the Cat skill, and that's going to be giving you +9 attack and speed. It's a marginal increase from her attack speed push skill, but if you're a big Laurashell fan, then this is definitely a premium option. Young Tana is a Lance Flyer, and she's got a preferred weapon in Lance of Frelia, which gives her -1 special cooldown, and this is very important for a lot of the Gale Force builds, as you'll see later on. And she can also teleport within 2 spaces of an ally that she is within 2 spaces of. And start of combat, if she's above 25% HP, then she gets +6 attack and speed during the combat, and also gets +10 defense and resistance during the combat. So the +6 attack and speed part is going to be active in both phases, while the +10 defense and resistance is only going to be active in the player phase. So this makes Young Tana into a very good player phase unit because she's getting extra offenses and incredible amount of bulk. She pretty much effectively hits 50 defense even at unmerged using her weapon, the impact skill, and the range skill that she comes with. So she is deceptively bulky as a Lance Flyer, and she can also be extremely fast, so that is something to watch out for, along with the movement shenanigans that she has in her weapon. Lance Flyers have a lot of competition, but the movement shenanigans that she can get from her weapon is extremely good as a utility. Her stat spread is also quite good offensively, having that 39 base attack and 41 base speed, and both of these do have super boons. A lot of times at low merges, plus speed IV is going to be preferred because she can work really well as a Gale Force unit, but at like max investment, plus attack can also work because she can get incredibly fast with her overall kit. Her bulk is also not that bad when it comes to her defense, and like I said, she can get pretty deceptively bulky. Young Tana also comes with Neo Trace skill, and this is only going to be available to cavalry and flying units who are melee. So she can definitely make really good use of this skill because she's got the teleportation and she's already quite bulky, so she doesn't exactly need something like Dive Bomb, and she can use something like Desperation at lower investment, but Neo Trace is going to be giving you a lot of utility. So the Neo Trace skill gives you -3 speed and defense debuff during the combat on the foe, and this is really good because flying units don't have access to lull skills, and this can stack up with the range skill to give you a lot of debuffs on the enemy, and she already gets so many stats from her weapon, so this makes it even more solid. and this skill does have the Canto mechanic, and this is going to be utilizing your remaining movement +1, and this is extremely good for any kind of Gale Force unit. And Young Tana, like I said, excels in player phase, and that's why Gale Force is a really good option to go for her. And as you can see here, Canto is going to be working with the extra movement buff from someone like legendary Azura. And keep in mind that Gale Force activates before Canto, so you can just attack, get the Gale Force, attack another unit, and then retreat with Canto, and this can be really good. And when you combine Gale Force with her teleportation shenanigans, then she can be a really solid Gale Force unit who can also hit and run. So that just allows for many options to be available. Speaking of teleportation, keep in mind that when you're going to be teleporting with your Tana, with her preferred weapon, you're only going to be able to have one movement as your Canto, because it just uses up all of your movement, and only the +1 from the Canto skill is going to be left. So keep that in mind whenever you're going to be teleporting. Still, the one movement Canto is not that bad for retreating. Young Tana comes with an extremely good base kit, so you can just go with reposition as a assist and have something like Sparrow. And you can also go with Heavy Blade Gale Force, which I would highly recommend. This is a build that is just so fun to use, and she really excels in player phase, so there's no reason not to give her Gale Force, honestly. And attack speed drain can also help her with the triggers of the Heavy Blade. You can also just go with Desperation in slot B if you don't really want the trace skill, and have a player phase option like Sparrow 3 for more offenses. I would definitely suggest having trace skill for Aether Raid's offense because it's amazing on a Gale Force unit, and you can pretty much use her teleportation to get around the enemies and just attack them, Gale Force, and then Canto out, or even Canto to just block an enemy or trap an enemy. So she definitely has place in Aether Raid's offense, and on a budget you can definitely run Fury 3 in slot A, but if you want to invest a bit more, then you can run Heavy Blade 4, and that is going to be giving you the true damage. You can also use her in Aether Raid's defense because having that teleportation to keep in mind is going to be a really annoying thing for your opponent. So the trace skill can definitely help you because she can just move back and then get danced, and that just allows her to be such an annoying unit with all of the teleportation skills. So you can just go with her base kit and still work out fine, and Luna is going to be a pretty good special to just bust through a lot of the tanks. But if you want to invest a bit more into her, then again I would suggest having Gale Force and also having Lunge so that you can basically go into the back line of the opponent and attack their weaker units like Mythics. And the impact skill with her high speed means that she can quite easily trigger Heavy Blade many of the times, and it's not really all that hard to do. At max investment you can definitely run Heavy Blade 4, giving you the true damage and also helping you with Gale Force. And at last, if you want to use Young Tana at plus and merge in Arena, then she's going to be fantastic unit because Arena forces you to run these double rally skills and stuff like that. So having that movement shenanigans from her weapon is extremely good, and she can also function with the trace skill, with Gale Force, and that's just all very good. Not to mention you can also run Guidance, and this can pretty much allow you to protect her with your other units who can teleport in, and even just have this as a thing to increase the mobility of your overall team. So hope you all enjoyed my banner review. Make sure to share this video with your friends who are trying to build up any of these units or are polling for them. And if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as young Laura Shell's physical bulk. So that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.